Hey guys, back with another video. This time I figured I'd show my Mega Drive collection, the cover, and compare the cover arts. So just jump right in. There's no particular order, by the way. So here's the North American Gunstar Heroes. Here's the Japanese artwork, and this is another example where the Japanese artwork, which is heavily inspired by anime, which is the predominant art style when it comes to entertainment in Japan at the time. They brought that over to the US. It's less anime-ish. I mean, it's still cartoonish, right? It's still kind of wacky looking with a big head and lots of action, but it doesn't capture the same kinetic energy, I think, of this cover. So why they felt like they had to change it to this instead of leaving it this, my guess is it probably, the anime scared them and probably made it look too ethnic, and that probably maybe they thought that would scare parents off. So that's the Gunstar Heroes. So this is Midnight Resistance, North American and Japanese. So the North American cover looks like your typical action hero, Rambo-ish, Commando-ish, soldier shooting everywhere, which is pretty much widely accepted here in the U.S. The Japanese cover just shows more of a subtle, hand reaching for an Uzi rifle with some, interesting jewelry. I'm not sure why they felt like they needed to change it. Maybe this wasn't clear enough what the game was about. They kind of had to literally show you, hey, it's about a guy shooting, so let's put a guy shooting on the cover with some cogwheels or something going on in the background. So almost, I would say in 90% of cases, I like the Japanese Mega Drive artwork better, and just no exception here. So here's Strider, the North American Strider, with the Bill Pullman look-alike, swinging a sword. Of course, he's about as American and apple pie as you can imagine. Here is the original artwork, which again, he's a ninja, and so he's going to be, of Japanese descent. And you got some great artwork here of the Overlord and like the mecha monkey, and I just know this is so cool. I don't know why. Well, I guess I do know why. Again, they didn't want, the whole anime look, right? So they moved away from it, and they decided this was better because, oh, look, we're, G.I. Joe-ish or a Ken from like the Barbie line coming to save the day. But, oh well. This is the Japanese E-SWAT, which looks badass. Here's the American E-SWAT, which, it's okay. I mean, it's not as bad as some of the others. It's trying to make it look all cyborg-like. There was a lot of fascination with cyborgs after RoboCop and the Terminator, so maybe that's kind of the angle they're trying to go for, like this guy's half man, half machine. Whereas here, it's a guy just, in full armor in the suit, which is not really a cyborg at all. He's just a guy in a suit, and as you take damage, parts of the suit kind of chip away, Yeah, it's a shame. This is such a cool piece of art. This is X Ranza, which is known in the U.S. as Ranger X. So they both are very similar. They both have giant mechs on the cover. I feel like the Japanese version is a lot more stately looking, a lot more composed, and, there's nothing really offensive about this at all. There's nothing really ethnic about this at all, but still they figured it wasn't, Genesis, the American Genesis had to have more action. So there's flames now, and whereas here there's not. this this is not bad. If I didn't know this existed, this would have been perfectly fine. But why, again, what you're making changes just to make a point, just to make changes, you know. It's a shame because this is a really cool cover, I think. Oops. So this is Gain Ground, which is a classic arcade single screen action run and gun style, almost like a puzzle game. Here's the renovation cover, the US release. And I will say in this time, I think that the US wins out in this case. It's not really clear what's happening, even though they do show you more of what the stage setup is like. But I don't think you need to see that, right? I don't think you need to convey that. I think this is just a better presentation overall. It shows the variety of the protagonists. You can choose different players, and you have to kind of get through the stages, get everybody through the stages to pass the stage. So there's a heavy emphasis on knowing the attributes and the abilities of each of the players to get through. So, and I don't think you get that from here. So I'd say the US cover wins here in this case. Here's Outrun, and the US cover is, nothing wrong with it. It's pretty plain. It's like the side of the arcade. The Japanese cover is largely the same. I mean, aside from the yellow border and I guess more centered logo, they just decided to, they showed the front of the card. It's zooming at you in the Japanese cover, whereas, the American cover is taking the rear vantage point, which is what you see primarily when you're playing the game anyways. So I guess maybe, just a matter of semantics here as to which one you think is better. So they're both fine. The yellow is an odd choice, but it does stand out on the shelf. I'm gonna shift this, make this easier to reach things. So this is Crackdown. Crackdown is an overhead run and gun, sort of slow, methodical. It's almost strategy, but not. You're placing bombs in places, and you can hug walls and dodge enemy fire. There's a stealth element involved here to this game, which is kind of like the Metal Gear before Metal Gear, or I should say before Metal Gear Solid. The Japanese version is very heavily anime, as well, as you can see here. Now, I don't like the actual art. I think that the assets here are not very well painted or drawn. I don't think they're that great here on the Japanese version either. This is too crazy. So I guess I don't really like either of these. So it's a draw. Here is Ghosts and Goblins, known as Daimakai Mora. And it's basically the same, right? The small stylistic changes are based on region, just as far as the text, but the artwork was largely unchanged, and I think that was a good idea, because this is fantastic artwork, so I'm glad that they reused it in total. So now we're getting to Street Fighter. This is Street Fighter 2 Dash, known as Champion Edition. And what's interesting is, entirely different artwork. This cover has mostly the same artwork as the PC Engine artwork as well, right? Whereas, when they brought it over here, the TurboGrafx did not get the Street Fighter, because it pretty much died before this game came out. And they're both fine. This one does show you more, it's more reminiscent of the gameplay. The American version is, that is, whereas this is more of a like a display, more of like a movie poster type approach. I guess I don't really know which one is better than the other. They're both good. I don't know that they needed to change it from this to this, unless they thought maybe M. Bison's eyes looked too creepy. Of course, it's not M. Bison, or in Japan they changed his name as well. So, Super Street Fighter 2. Again, completely different artwork. We just have silhouettes here on the American version, foreshadowing or literal shadowing, the new characters that are playable. Whereas here, they're on the cover, but they're just in plain sight, plain to see, along with Ryu jumping out of the sky. I do like this artwork better. This one it's a little too generic. They're trying to be coy, as if you don't know what the characters are going to look like once you start playing anyways. I don't know why they had to obscure the identities. So that's Super Street Fighter 2. One of my favorite series, Thunder Force 2. So, the Thunder Force 2, the Japanese version, it's a little odd. The shape, the fuselage here, kind of reminds me of those styrofoam planes that you would buy and assemble and just kind of throw outside in your backyard, and it would just do loop-de-loops over and over again. It's not very menacing. It's not very sharp. It looks like a space shuttle, sort of, Whereas in Thunder Force 2, you got the rear view of the ship, and you see it attacking all over the place and just laying waste to the enemies, to the enemy bases. So, North American cover art here for Thunder Force 2 gets my vote for this version. For Thunder Force 3, the artwork is literally the same. I mean, the box is almost literally the same too. It's almost, indistinguishable from the front. You'd have to look at the side. Oh, that's really close too. So they saw they had a good thing, they didn't change it, and that was a wise choice. So Thunder Force 3, one of my favorite games. Very, very, very nostalgic for the shooter. And then they released Thunder Force 4, which is, claimed by many to be the best shooter on the system. And, I think it's way up there. It's not my favorite, but I do agree. Based on technical merit, it's one of the best. And then in the US, what did they do? Well, they had to go and they had to change the name from Thunder Force 4 to Lightning Force, with some derpy, looking space shuttle pod thing, and it just generic space theme type cover. Why would you, they had some really solid traction when they released Thunder Force 3. Why wouldn't they ride the momentum of that with this badass game? But no, they had to obscure it. It's almost like they didn't know. It's almost like there was a change of leadership, and they didn't know what the hell Thunder Force was. And so they decided to change the game some way, because maybe this wouldn't be as appealing. I don't know. It's just one in many boneheaded decisions by Sega of America, which is probably why they're not around today. It's a shame. Golden Axe. Golden Axe was one of the first games that when I was a kid, I saw and I thought, wow, that plays literally like the arcade. And again, here's in the Japanese artwork, it's okay. The American artwork is not much better, but I do think it's better a little bit. I think this one wins out for me. I'm not sure about the Speedo on X Battler here in the Japanese version. And then, the dwarf seems like he's about to lay down for a nap. You know, Tyrus Flair is fine. She looks there. She looks badass there, and she looks, you know, a little less badass there. She's got some crazy hair going on, but, you know, I like the North American version better here for Golden Axe. For part two, we got a very wild and hairy, flowy anime style here on the Japanese version. And we got more of a Boris Vallejo vibe going on here on the American version. And again, I actually think I like the North American version of the art better for part two. Maybe there's just too much background stuff going on. Maybe the background's a little too busy here unnecessarily. And I'm not crazy about the depiction of Axe Battler. He doesn't really look like that. He doesn't look like a blonde, long-haired punk in the game. You know, he is more of like a gruff. Granted, this guy's a little too clean-shaven too, but yeah. North American edges this one out just a little bit. This is part 3, and for those of you who probably already know this, you know, the Golden Axe 3 was not released domestically, so this was the Japanese release. And man, look at the abs on Tyrus Flair. I mean, she's almost looking anorexic there. We got a bunch of new characters too, like the Panther dude and the big tank guy. It's a shame. I have no idea why they didn't release this. Why wouldn't they release the 3rd installment of one of their best franchises? You know, it's just bewildering to me. One of the best brawler series, the 16-bit generation, Streets of Rage or Bare Knuckle. And both of these covers are excellent. They both have a lot going on. Interestingly, on the American cover, Axel is shown wearing a yellow shirt, which he does not have in this game. But on the Japanese cover, he's wearing the white. Yeah, I like the Japanese artwork better here. And this is iconic. I mean, I am used to seeing this, the North American, but I just feel like the presentation, more front and center, you know, is cleaner on the Japanese version on the Mega Drive. Part 2. Again, you got some wild, crazy action on the cover of the North American art. You've got Axel looking sort of like Willem Dafoe for some reason, with a large coif of hair. And this always cracks me up, how Max looks like he's bending over in a seated position, because you don't see this guy who's falling over. You don't see his head, so it kind of looks like he's like riding a bike, so to speak. And you got Skate there. Now, the Japanese version, even though in the last version I said that I like the presentation in Bare Knuckle 1 better, because the presentation is front and center, on Bare Knuckle 2, while the presentation is front and center, I don't care for the character profiles here. It's almost like they've tried to make them look Japanese, yeah, to appeal to the home market. And I don't know, that wasn't necessary, you know, which you know, that in and of itself is not a problem, but it looks weird. That's not what the characters look like at all when you turn the game on. So I'm going to go with North American here for this one here, for Bare Knuckle 2. For Streets of Rage 3, we got some new characters, and the Bare Knuckle 3 box art I like this one better than Streets of Rage. Here, I'm not quite sure. There's some proportionality issues with Axel's hand. It's as big as his head, and he is doing the grand upper, but he looks like he's also pinching a loaf at the same time. I'm not sure, you know, what's going on here. And you got Dr. Zane in his crazy electric hand and the kangaroo. I just think the art is better on Bare Knuckle 3 on the Japanese version. I think it's a little too yellow overall. The yellow flamey background along with the yellow logo is probably too much, along with the yellow striped border here at the top. It's probably too much yellow. I mean, but aside from that, that's a minor point. I just think the artwork is better. All right, getting down to my favorite trilogy, Shinobi series, The Revenge of Shinobi, which was called Super Shinobi in Japan. These are both iconic. These are both great pieces of art. Now, I do prefer The Revenge of Shinobi, and that partially that's nostalgia talking, because I'm very, very this image is emblazoned in my memory from first seeing a Sega Genesis. And this is when I knew I wanted a Genesis, when I saw and played this game. Now, I'm giving this the edge over Super Shinobi because the Super Shinobi artwork is the title screen, so you get both pieces of art in this game anyways. So maybe a little redundant by putting it on the cover and on the title screen. Not a big deal, but that, I don't want to discount the quality of this artwork. This is fantastic. This is like poster quality, artwork that you'd want on a video game cover. Not really a sequel, more like a side series, Shadow Dancer. This game plays more like the arcade Shinobi than Revenge of Shinobi does. It's one-hit death, it's quicker, faster paced, no limits on shuriken, and you have a dog that assists you. Now, this cover, the American cover, is heavily maligned for people. People just don't like this cover because they don't feel like it conveys what happens in the game. They don't really know what the hell's going on when you look at it, but I never understood that criticism. If you look at it closely, clearly there's a ninja with a sword taking out a bad guy. The guy is clearly bad because he's about to mug that lady, And the fact that they're zoomed out and you see the huge shadow of the ninja and the name of the game is Shadow Dancer, I don't have a problem with this cover. I think it's more of a little bit of a subtle approach, and I think that's fine. But, that might have to do with people not really recognizing this game when they see it. Now, Shadow Dancer for the Mega Drive, this cover is kind of crazy. You got your Statue of Liberty, you've got Yamato the dog, you got lightning, and he's falling in this crazy, pose, flailing, looking, physiologically impossible posture here. So I understand they wanted to convey maximum kinetic energy on the cover, but I just don't think it's this piece of art is actually conveying that properly. So even though this is very, very, attention grabbing, I prefer the subtlety of the North American artwork, just because I'm not sure that this is done that well. All right, and the third game, Super Shinobi 2, otherwise known as Shinobi 3, Revenge of the Ninja Master. So, on the Japanese version, you've got Joe Musashi crouching, waiting to spring up and attack in the shadows, right? It's dark in the dark of night. Here, you've got him in an attack posture, and you got some enemies in the background. You got some flaming air in the back. And it's more cartoonish, whereas this goes more for realism. This is not bad, but I prefer Super Shinobi 2. I just think that more is a more accurate pose a ninja would take. I just think it looks better. All right. And so these two games are not related, but they are the two additional Mega Drive games that I have. And so New Zealand Story was not released. So it's a fun, cutesy platformer. I find it very difficult because I think your hitbox is ridiculously large. And sometimes I feel like it's even bigger than your sprite is. So you're just taking hits left and right and you're not even sure why. But it's got potential. This could have been so fun. I just, they need to tweak that a little bit. And Wrestle War is an underrated wrestling game on the Mega Drive. This was not released in the US either. And if you look closely, I mean, there's copyright infringements all over the place, you know, with Hogan, Hulk Hogan, clearly meant to be Hulk Hogan, you know, with those WCW guys. It's, they could have changed, now, you know, they could have changed the art. They easily could have changed the art and ported this over, and it would have been a great game. It totally would have been a great entry in the North American library, but they didn't. So, those are my Mega Drive games that are not shooters. So in a following video, I'm going to be comparing all of my Mega Drive shooters with their North American and their Japanese cover arts as well. So, thanks for watching.